my freshman year. It was the fall season. And it's like, well, what am I going to do? So I started off at college at Western, studying English to be a teacher. Because my sixth grade teacher, who I am still friends with, said, you ought to be a teacher, because I ask a lot of questions. I'm like, oh, okay. So I started off at WestCon thinking, all right, what am I going to do? A teacher. So, and then that didn't work out. Because I got involved with the college radio station the following spring. I walked in there thinking, I was nervous. I thought it would be fun. I was always interested in radio and TV. Probably got bit by the bug in 1959. My parents took my twin brother and two older brothers. We went down to New York City for a live broadcast. They taped it. It's called Kinescope, of Beat the Clock with Bud Collyer, who was the original host of the show. So, you can imagine being 5 years old and seeing these bright lights and a big camera and in a studio. So that interested me way back then. So in college, I thought, all right, I went into the college radio station. What do I got to lose? I walked in there. The gentleman who was on the air, it was like a Saturday morning. It was quiet, and the guy on the air was Greg Lohr. Greg and I are still friends, very close friends these days. He said, hey, you want to join the radio station? Sure. So he sat down, he goes, read this copy. So he gave me something that was ripped off the wire. The wire was the Associated Press wire, news wire. So I sat and read it, and he goes, welcome to the club. And that was it. And he was so nice, and he still, back then he was smoking a pipe in the studio, which you can't smoke anything in a studio these days because of the equipment. And that was it. So I got involved all I did was news. I wasn't a DJ. I didn't care about spinning records. I cared about news. I don't know why. It just fascinated me. I would watch Walter Cronkite, who I got to meet a couple of times, and his wife, Betsy. Nice people. So I got involved with the college radio station, and became the assistant news director of the radio station. And then one day, I skipped class because I heard the local radio station, don't laugh, WINE, AM and FM. The FM, who's from Newtown? Sandy Hook? All right. So the FM is I-95 today. I was one of the original I-95 guys. So I heard that they needed a part-time reporter, cover stories at night, anchor Saturday, Sunday afternoons, news, and write. So I skipped the class and did the newscast. At that time, we were broadcasting only within the campus. That's all you can hear the station until we finally got a larger transmitter and we went public. So today it's a very popular radio station in Western Connecticut, and I had heard that the assistant news director was on campus at that time. And so I finished the end of the newscast. I saw a figure standing next to the glass. When I got done, he opened the door and he said, how'd you like a job? And that's how I got my first broadcast job. I became professional that day. So my first story, they talked to the news director, and the news director said, I'll pay you $5 a story. Now, at the time, this is 1973. At the time, what was I making? $1.60 an hour, I think? So it's like, okay, let's see. $5 or $10 a story, I can knock out a couple of stories a day. So my first story was April 14th. So next week is my anniversary? Next week will be my 48th anniversary. My first story was a very complex story about Danbury's 6-tiered tax system. And it was a budget referendum. I didn't get out of there. It started at 8, they finished at 12:30. So I had to write 2 versions of the story. I'm thinking, oh, okay, I'll make 20 bucks. No. I finished 2 versions of the story, wrote it, left it. I left at 3 a.m. So how many hours did I work? 7:30 until 3:30. I worked a long day. For, let's see, that turned out to be about 80 cents an hour. I got paid less than what I thought, but it's the experience. That was my first job, my first baptism into broadcasting. And I stuck with it, I had ideas and dreams of where I wanted to be and what I wanted to do. So by my junior year, I applied as an intern. I got involved with a group called Radio Television News Directors Association. I became the Connecticut rep for them in college. So one of the folks who was in New York said, you ought to go to our convention. So I went to the conventions and said, we have an internship at WNEW Channel 5 New York. So I applied for it and I got it. So I had to commute from Ansonia, where I lived with my parents, to New York every day. A 3-hour door-to-door trip. So it's 6 hours of traveling each way to work for nothing. I did it. You just do these things because you should. This is while working radio on weekends and working 5 days a week in New York, or depending if they need me on weekends. When my internship was done, they asked me if I would like a job as a production assistant. A production assistant is somebody that assists first I was on the assignment desk, helping the assignment editor, who was younger than me, who went on to become a co-host of ABC's 2020. In the back room was an intern, Keith Oberman. Keith has been on ESPN off and on. I don't know where he is these days. I think he's still there, or he's back again.
I think so.
Yeah. So Keith was loud and obnoxious then, he still is. But that's Keith. That's his way. You meet a lot of people, and as you grow in the industry, I always maintain your contacts. If you're going to be in journalism, your contacts are your key, and keep them to yourself, because you do. That's what I had to do. But that was my baptism into broadcasting for both radio and TV. When I got out of, my internship was up, they hired me. I worked for about 1.5 years, and then I needed to make money because I was getting married. I was like 24 now. And so, having a family, it doesn't cut it by commuting in New York and making $2.10 an hour. So I took a temporary job, something I had right out of high school, driving a lumber truck and delivering material while working the radio station on the weekend. So my mother had heard that while I was doing this, that the morning guy on a radio station in New Haven was leaving. He's going to Boston. She said, you ought to call up. So I called up. They met with me. I gave them a tape, a resume tape. They hired me to do mornings with somebody who I grew up listening to, which was a lot of fun. We became friends. And then I was there exactly 1 year to the day. And the competition, KC 101, WABC in New Haven, the boss called me up, got a hold of me, had lunch, and he said, I need a new news director. Would you consider it? So, 1 year after starting at WBLI, I'm now at the competition as the news director. I'm a boss of 7 people now, and writing and doing the morning. What do you think it took to do mornings in radio? Well, even today. Anybody? What time would you have to get up to do morning radio?
I'm going with 4.
Get up. That's to be there.
2.
There you go. I lived in Danbury, drove an hour to the studio. So I'd be up at 2. Out the door at 2:30, there at 3:30, after picking up coffee and donuts for the crew, and be in the studio and start writing, doing 4 newscasts an hour. There'd be one at the top of the hour for the AM, and one at the bottom of the hour for the AM, And at 20 after and 10 of was the FM, plus do traffic and everything else. I did that for 4 years, and the news director of Channel 8 New Haven kept hearing my name pop up. He said, how'd you like to come work for me? As an assignment editor. I'm like, because I had already, when I left Channel 5 in New York, I tried to get a job in Connecticut TV. I still have the letters from Channel 8 New Haven and Channel 3. Channel 8 said, I'm sorry, you have too much experience, we couldn't pay you. Isn't that weird? Channel 3 said, we don't have any positions this time for you. Like, all right. So I did show eventually I worked at Channel 8 for 9 years. I was the voice of Channel 8 before being a reporter and anchor there. And then Channel 3 hired me, and that was 24 years ago. So, never give up, always push forward, and believe in yourself. So I worked those jobs. Never had an interest to go back to New York. It was fun, but there's not much you can do in New York, because you live by the contract and you die by it.